The Rangers lose in devastating fashion, 4-3 in overtime to the Ottawa Senators. We are calling out the Rangers for continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and wondering if K'Andre Miller still has a future with this team.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1263 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, and we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we got another one, guys. We got another Ranger loss that is in the running, in contention to be the grand champion of terrible losses this season for the New York Rangers. It's certainly in the mix. I'm not going to crown it just yet, but we would have to look back at the entire body of work and who's to say what's going to come in the final 19 games of this season. But this was a bad one. And it's not in the running because, oh, this is the worst the Rangers have played all season. We know that's not the case. I don't think they were great in this game by any stretch of the imagination, but we've seen them play far worse. But I just think the fact that huge game against the Ottawa Senators, a team that you're neck and neck with for one of those last couple of playoff spots there. Every game is so important, and you largely got outplayed for 60 and a half minutes, when we throw the overtime period in there. And you might hear that at first and think like, well, they were up 2-0, they were up 3-1. I think most people that watch this game would probably be in agreement that they were lucky to have a 2-0 lead. They were lucky to have a 3-1 lead. They were lucky to be leading at any point in this game by any amount of goals, much less two on two separate occasions. But be that as it may, the biggest issue for the Rangers for me is that they continue to make the same exact mistakes. And we are now past the 3/4 mark of the season, so I'm not so sure that any of these mistakes are really going to get fixed, or at least not with any kind of regularity. So we might as well at least go ahead and call them out for it one more time here. It just boggles my mind how this team cannot do any of the little things right, how they cannot avoid making the same mistakes over and over again. The Raiders, with that overtime loss yesterday, as awful as it was, that point actually put them now tied for the last playoff spot in the Eastern Conference with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And they play the Jackets in a couple of hours from right now as I'm recording this. So that's the good news. The bad news, though, is that even if the Rangers make the playoffs, you've got a situation here where you are a team that is not set up to have any kind of success in the playoffs, because the playoffs are about a lot of different things, physicality, and obviously the speed of the game picks up and everything. But what's big in the playoffs, you have to eliminate or at least severely limit your mistakes. You cannot afford to be making mistakes, especially mental mistakes, in the playoffs, and you have to do all the little things correctly. The Rangers constantly make mistakes, and they make the same mistakes over and over again, and they don't do any of the little things correctly. And those two things are kind of hand in hand with each other. But you get what I'm saying here. Even if they do manage to eat their way in, this brand of hockey is just not going to cut it, especially when you're going up against one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, which is what the Rangers are going to be faced with if they do get in. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this comedy of errors that the Rangers made in this game. First of all, another too many men on the ice penalty. This is approaching the point of insanity for myself and a lot of you as well. And just the fact that they just keep doing this. Right before I went on vacation, I did an episode. I talked about how this has been a recurring problem for this team all season. And I threw out the idea, I hadn't looked it up, but I threw out the idea that, okay, the Rangers have to be at or near the top of the league in too many men on the ice penalties. I didn't have to look that up to know that for sure. I've watched the Rangers play hockey this season. I know what an epidemic it's been, just like a lot of you know that as well. But I threw it out there that they have to be at or near the top of the league in too many men on the ice penalties. And then one of you guys, forget who, I'm sorry, but somebody on Twitter responded to me that, oh yeah, Joe Micheletti, this is while I'm on vacation, Joe Micheletti mentioned that yes, the Rangers do indeed, they are tied for the league lead in too many men on the ice penalties. Well, they got to be alone in first now because they've had too many men on the ice penalties in the last 3 games, and it's really starting to hurt them. It hurt them in this game. Obviously, the Rangers took too many penalties in general, and you get all these mental mistake penalties, including the too many men penalty. And what made this one even worse, it happened right at the end of the second period. So again, you've got a problem that the Rangers have had all season, the too many men on the ice penalties. combined with another problem that the Rangers have had all season, the inability to focus at the beginning and starts of periods. You've got those two holding hands, linked together, combining for one big blunder by the Rangers at the end of the period. And when they took this too many men on the ice penalty, I don't know exactly when it happened. I didn't happen to notice when the ref put his arm up, but the Senators had possession of the puck and they were behind their own net. The Rangers weren't pressuring them or anything. You see periods end like this fairly often in the NHL where one team has possession and they're in their own zone. You don't want to take the chance of making a mistake trying to get the puck up the ice. There's a better chance that you'll give it away and give a chance to your opponent to score than you'll be able to go all the way up the ice and score. And so that's what the Senators were doing. They were content to just chill behind their own net, let the clock tick off, and head into the break down by 1 goal at that time. This is when the Rangers took their too many men on the ice penalty. How do you do that? You've got an opponent that's basically conceding the period being over and not even attempting to do anything offensively, not even attempting to bring the puck out from behind their own net, and you still take a too many men on the ice penalty. How does that happen? That's on the players, that's on the coaches, that's just a complete lack of focus, and it's just unacceptable, but they just keep doing it. I mean, what can I even say about it at this point? It's bordering on insanity at this point in the season, how often this happens with this Ranger team. But that wasn't the only thing. We also had the Rangers incapable of delivering in crunch time. That's been a problem this year. This has not been a clutch hockey team this season, okay? I mean, look at their overtime record to know that for sure. 1-6 in 3v3 overtime hockey this year are the New York Rangers. And don't worry, we'll get to that and talk about that in greater detail in just a little bit here. We'll talk about that wonderful pass that Keandre Miller made in the overtime period. But again, not delivering in crunch time. This is a calling card of the Rangers last year. They were so good, man. When the Rangers, when it was all on the line, overtime, regular season, overtime playoffs, tie game regular season, tie game playoffs, this is when you as a Ranger fan felt good because they gave you reasons to feel good. This is when they were at their best last season. This is when they delivered. This is when they got that, big save or they scored that clutch goal or whatever it might be. They found a way to get it done when all the chips were down. And it was the most clutch points of the game. And they can't do that this year. They very rarely do that this year. This team is up by 2 goals with less than 13 minutes to go for 2 reasons. One was Igor Shesterkin, and the second one, it's not even a reason. It was just completely in spite of themselves. Maybe that Carson Soucy goal that was scored early, you can throw that in there. That was a little bit of a lucky break for the Rangers. So that's part of the reason why they had the lead as well. But you're now up by 2 goals here. And you would think that with 80% of this game now over, and the Rangers clearly not playing their best up to this point, not even close, that at this point, everybody could kind of look at each other and say, okay, you know what, guys? We're up by 2 goals. Our goalie has stood on his head this entire game. Let's get it going. Let's step on the gas. Let's bring this one home. Let's leave nothing to doubt, and let's go out there and play like our season is on the line for the last 12 or 13 minutes of this game. And they didn't do that. They went into a shell, basically played almost like a prevent defense in hockey. I mean, that's more of a football term than a hockey term, but you know what I'm talking about. They went into a shell. The entire third period was played in the Rangers zone. The Rangers had 0 offensive zone possessions that were sustained to any degree. I mean, of course, the puck would go into the center zone once in a while, but it would come right back out. There weren't any, blue-collar shifts where the Rangers were keeping it pinned back there. It was just bad hockey and kind of a situation where you're relying on Igor Shesterkin to do what he's been doing the entire afternoon and continue to stand on his head and continue to make all these ridiculous saves. And at a certain point, the dam is going to break. I mean, he's not Superman. And as we know, Igor has not had his best season this year. I thought he was fantastic in this game. But, I mean, to ask him to just keep making all these insane saves after insane save after insane save while you basically just stand there and watch, that's not fair to your goaltender. I don't care if it's Igor Shesterkin, Jonathan Quick, or any goalie on the planet. That's just not going to work. That's not going to cut it. And the Senators kept going. And before you know it, they tie the game. It's an overtime. And then we get that, terrible 33 seconds of overtime. As far as the goals that the Senators scored to tie this game, it's 3-1 Rangers. They finally score on the power play, sort of. It technically wasn't a power play goal for the Senators, but it might as well have been. It was like literally a second after the power play ran out. So you keep playing with fire. You keep giving the Senators power play chances. Eventually, they get one in the net. And again, technically, the Sens were 0 for 5 on the power play. But as far as I'm concerned, that counts as a power play goal. I know it won't go into the books that way, but as far as I'm concerned, yes, that's what it was. It was a power play goal. And then you had the game tying goal where the Rangers were just atrocious. Just terrible defense here. Up 3-2. Again, playing a team you're neck and neck with. Every point is so precious, so critical. I'd be mad about this even if the Rangers had won in overtime yesterday, because you let the Senators get a point that they should not have gotten. You should be able to bring home this win in regulation when you're up 3-1 with less than 12 minutes to go. And of course, the Rangers were not able to do that. But this game tying goal was particularly bad. Another case of just very flimsy defense in front of the Ranger net, not clearing anybody out of there. This is a theme all day. I mean, how many chances do the Senators get from right there in the slot or right there, in the inside portions of the face-off circles, high danger, prime real estate scoring areas over and over and over again, and just relying on Igor Shesterkin to save your bacon, which he did far more often than not in this game. But in this case, this scramble went on and on and on and on. And the Rangers tried to kind of write it off after the game as well. It's a little bit of a, follow the bouncing puck kind of a play. Okay, fine. A little bit, yes. I'll give them that. But they didn't do anything to help themselves. You have Vakanainen, you have Schneider, and you have Trocheck. I mean, really everybody on the ice, but these three really stood out to me because I watched this replay more times than I ever should have for my own sanity. But all three of these guys are just kind of reaching for the puck, stretching for the puck. Nobody's taking the body. Nobody's doing anything to make life difficult on the Senator forwards. Nobody's doing anything to clear the crease. And eventually the puck, it bounced around a little bit because you let it bounce around a little bit. And you allowed the Senators to keep getting their sticks on the puck. Eventually it moves to the front of the Ranger net. Igor tries to get his glove on it. He can't do it. Amadio scores from the doorstep. And just like that, you've given away a 2-goal lead. And both these goals scored with less than 10 minutes to go by the Senators in the third period. It's unacceptable. It just can't happen. And to stick with this theme of the Rangers continuing to repeat the same mistakes, how many times have we talked about this? The issues that the Rangers have after a goal is scored. They go up 2-0 in this game, and then they give up a goal to Brady Tkachuk 11 seconds later. Now it's 2-1. You have a chance to maybe take real control of this game, take a stranglehold, take the crowd out of it. Maybe even the Senators players get a little bit dejected, and you give it right back 11 seconds later. And then the Panarin goal that makes it 3-1, it wasn't immediately after the goal, but again, you give away a goal basically about 3 minutes, give or take a couple of seconds either way, right after Panarin scored. I mean, you got to be better than that. You just got to be sharper than that. And again, the Rangers went into a shell when they should have been attacking, getting the puck deep, and going to work on the forecheck to grind out this clock and get out of there with 2 points. And they just weren't able to do it. So very, very disappointing loss. Like I said, it's certainly in the running for not the worst that the Rangers have played all season, but just most devastating, most maddening loss of the season. I think it's certainly a candidate for that category. But anyway, we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. We have not yet gotten to the play that decided the game. And we can talk about how they got there all we want. But the bottom line, this game was in overtime. Rangers still had a chance to win it. And they give the game away about half a minute into the overtime period. And Keandre Miller obviously had a big mistake there. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It is the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off the kids, Wonderful Pistachios are the snack that works as hard as you do. The satisfying crack of opening each shell, it's like snack meditation. Get snackin', get crackin' with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers. As always, thank you guys for sticking with this roller coaster of a season that's probably going to come down to the wire as far as the Rangers making the playoffs or not. Rangers going to be back in action a little bit later here today on Sunday, 6 p.m. against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Another enormous game for both teams, really. They are tied for the final wildcard spot. The Jackets do have a game in hand on the Rangers, but if the Rangers win this game in regulation later today, they will then be 2 points ahead of the Blue Jackets. The Blue Jackets will still have that game in hand, but even if they win that game in hand, the Rangers have the tiebreaker, which is regulation wins, and the Rangers have a massive lead there on the Blue Jackets. It's like if the Rangers win this one in regulation, it would be 30-22. So the Jackets aren't going to make up that tie-breaking category the rest of the way. But the bottom line, the Rangers have to win. That's all there is to it. And we'll see what happens. I mean, hey, if they win this game and they do so decisively and they look good, then we'll feel a lot better about this weekend because they will have gotten 3 out of a possible 4 points against 2 teams that they're trying to outlast for one of those last couple of wildcard spots. But for right now, let's go ahead and shift our attention to Keandre Miller. Just this awful pass that he had in overtime. And let me preface this entire section by saying this first. This entire loss is not on Keandre Miller. The Rangers as a team, I think basically one guy in this game, like truly pulled his weight. There were guys that had decent games, had decent showings. I thought Panarin played well. Obviously, he scored a goal. He was absolutely robbed on at least 2 other occasions. I thought the Ranger fourth line was out there grinding. I thought Matt Rempe had a heck of a game. Mika Zibanejad continues to look a lot better. And they've got to leave Mika with JT Miller and keep Mika and Kreider as far apart from each other as possible. They can kill penalties together. That's fine. I don't want to see those two back together 5v5 ever again because Mika is clearly a different player when he's out there with JT Miller. JT Miller, the type of player that I think for the most part is going to keep you honest as far as your effort and just the amount of jump that you're playing with. So got that out of the way. Again, the Rangers, not a single player on this team is blameless other than probably Igor. He gave up 4 goals, but he was fantastic, and anybody that watches this game is very well aware of that. So, with that said, the overtime winner by the Ottawa Senators. To begin with, the Rangers start the overtime period with a trio of JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, and Keandre Miller. And this is not a decision that should ever be taken lightly by any coach. And I'm not saying that Laviolette takes the decision lightly, because it can be over like that. I mean, any overtime in the playoffs, 5v5, those can end just as quickly, but 3v3 really lends itself to a quick finish, or at least the possibility of a quick finish with all the extra open ice and all the room that you've got to work with, and the fact that if you got the puck, you should be able to create at least a decent scoring chance for yourself without giving the puck away to your opponent. So these are the 3 players that they go with. I would have liked to have seen Zach Jones, but as soon as I say that, I know they're not going to do that. And Jones, I thought, played pretty well in this game also. But you go with Adam Fox in pretty much every overtime this season, just about every overtime they've had Fox out there. Obviously, he's not an option in this game because he's injured. But who plays a style as far as Ranger defenseman that is most similar to Adam Fox? Well, that would be Zach Jones. And Jones, I think, is a little bit, I know he's more mobile. I think he's a little bit faster than most of the Ranger defensemen. And again, it's 3v3 overtime with all this open ice. The entire rink is wide open. You want a defenseman out there who can move around a little bit and get from here to there as quickly as possible and defend the ice. I know Jones is small. Somebody's going to point that out in the comment section. Fine, I get it. But this is the time of the game, 3v3 overtime, where I think he would make more sense than Keandre Miller. At the same time, I'm not going to go crazy about it because I do think up to this point, Keandre Miller did play a decent game for the Rangers. Nobody was great. Like I said, none of the skaters were great, but I thought he was at least all right. Made some plays here and there. But in this case, yeah, they go JT, they go Keandre, and they go Mika. And Senators win the faceoff, and immediately you kind of groan a little bit because if you lose that opening faceoff, you might not get the puck in overtime. But we get a nice defensive play by Mika Zibanejad. He steals the puck as the Senators are going to the net, and he's able to I think he gave it away to JT Miller. He went off for a change. Panarin jumps on. You've got JT Miller passing out of the Ranger zone into the neutral zone to Panarin. Now, Panarin gets the pass. He's got a defender, bearing down on him. So he does the right thing. He quickly gets rid of it, gets it back to Keandre Miller in the defensive zone. Keandre Miller, for some reason, tries an immediate one-touch pass across the ice to JT Miller, and the pass is just atrocious. It's a mile behind him. JT came this close. He had to try to stop and reach behind with his stick, stretch out full extension to try to get possession of this puck, at least tip it a little bit to knock it down and settle it. He's not able to do it. It bounces off the boards and goes right to Tim Stützle. And if you watch this play, Stützle, he had kind of a delayed reaction, at least like a half second or a second here. I don't think he could believe what he was seeing. I don't think he could believe that the Rangers would make this bad of a pass at this situation in the game, 3-on-3 overtime when possession is so important, and the Rangers just give it away. And here's the puck. Just a golden gift for Stützle. He gets it, delays for a minute, not a full minute, you know what I mean, and passes across the ice to Brady Tkachuk. Tkachuk shoots and scores. And this might be the one goal that Igor would want back, but I'm not going to put it on Igor based on what he did in this game. I'm putting this on Keandre Miller because this was an awful pass in a situation in this game where even a bad pass, merely a bad pass, would have been okay. Because as bad as this pass was, JT Miller came that close to bailing him out of it because he reached back with his stick. He had to, twist and try to reach back for it. And that's what he did. JT couldn't have missed this puck by more than like an inch or two. And if he's able to get his stick on it, crisis averted, because the puck is not going to go back to Stützle and you're not going to get this scoring chance, and the Rangers would still have possession of the puck. But the other thing here is like, what goes into the decision making here as far as K'Andre Miller? Why are you trying this fancy one-touch pass across the ice in a situation like this? If you complete this pass, there's almost nothing to be gained from it. I mean, I realize, JT Miller, he'll have the puck and he'll be moving up the ice and into the offensive zone. And hey, maybe the Rangers score right then and there and they win this game. That's possible. But it's not like if he completes this pass, the Rangers are immediately going to have this golden scoring chance. They're not. They're still in the defensive zone. So to force a pass like this when you're under no pressure in a 3-on-3 overtime situation, when puck possession is so important and you risk giving away the puck, which is exactly what happens, it just makes no sense. And I realize, easy for me to say that watching on the couch, easy for you guys to say that, watching on your couch, whatever it might be. These guys have to make decisions like that. I get it. But man, this is crunch time. This is what these guys are paid to do. They're the best in the world, and you have to make better decisions than what we saw from K'Andre Miller in this situation. And if you're going to make this pass, force a pass this quickly like this, instead of just possessing the puck, surveying the ice a little bit, then you can't make a mistake like he made here. You got to make the pass, somewhat in the same zip code as JT Miller. He wasn't able to do it. It cost the Rangers badly, and they lose this game. Basically a 3-point swing, because if the Rangers won this in regulation, which they should have, that's 2 points for them and 0 points for the Senators. Instead, you lose in overtime. The Rangers only get 1 point. The Senators get 2. That is a 3-point swing against a team that, again, you're neck and neck with, trying to outlast for one of those final couple of wild card spots. So, K'Andre Miller, I don't know, man. This entire Ranger team is an absolute mess when it comes to 3-on-3 overtime. And you would think that they would be the exact opposite because, yes, this Ranger team is flawed. We've covered that over and over. We've covered that in today's episode. I just went through an entire laundry list in the last section of all the mistakes that the Rangers continue to make over and over and over again. So we know that they're flawed. But you look at their personnel, you look at the players on this team, and you would think that, okay, well, 3v3 overtime, that's right up their alley, man. We got these skilled players. They're going to take advantage of all this extra space on the ice. They certainly did that last year. We've got this goalie who's about to be the highest paid goalie in the history of the planet. So what's not to like here? In what way are the Rangers not built for 3v3 overtime, and yet they're 1-6 in 3v3 overtime? How is that even possible? No team in the NHL should be 1-6 in 3v3 overtime when you consider how wide open it is and how much of a crapshoot that it can be. But again, you would think the Rangers, that would be their bread and butter. They would love playing 3v3, and they just don't know what they're doing. They make all these mistakes, and before you know it, the puck ends up in the back of the net. Maybe if they go to overtime today, their strategy should be to just try to bleed the clock as much as possible. I mean, they've only been to one shootout this year, but they won it. They can't be as bad in the shootout as they are 3v3 overtime. So what the hey? Just skate around with the puck and try to kill the 5 minutes of overtime and just work your way into the shootout. But back to K'Andre Miller here. Whenever something like this happens, I can't help but remember that K'Andre Miller and his team, there was a report about this, they are said to be looking for a significant raise going into next season. Can anyone that's watched this team this year, which I assume is most of you, look at what K'Andre Miller has done this season and think that this is someone that has played his way into a significant raise? And again, I don't want to turn this into a K'Andre Miller bashing session. I don't want to do that at all, because I think the Rangers, like I said, it's one for all and all for one. And none of the Rangers were good enough in this game outside of Igor Shesterkin. But, I mean, K'Andre Miller, for full reference right now, $3.872 million per season. Significant raise, in my mind, that's got to be at least, bare minimum, $5.5 million. And I get the feeling he's looking more toward $6 million, $6.5 million, $7 million per season. And I just can't justify giving K'Andre Miller that kind of a pay raise if I'm the Rangers. I think he might be better served trying to trade him. I realize the Rangers have some issues on the blue line right now. And, trading Miller away, that might make things even worse. That might make you even thinner there. Maybe that also pays the way to bring in a different defenseman via trade or via free agency, whatever it might be. I can't justify a major raise for K'Andre Miller. I don't think you can go higher than $5 million. And even that, I don't think he's playing a $5 million per season kind of defenseman. What exactly happened with Keandre Miller? This is somebody who, 2 seasons into his NHL career, I was about as bullish on him as I've been on any young Ranger player in the history of this podcast. Because he's going out there every night, he's playing with some edge, he's grinding, he looks like he belongs. You get the rookie hiccup every once in a while, but that's not atypical of any rookie in the NHL. And for the most part, just hit the ground running, took the bull by the horns, and was a very solid defenseman for this team right out of the gates, playing in a top 4 role, I think immediately. Wasn't he out there with Trouba on the second pairing as soon as he debuted? Maybe there was a short time where he was on the third pairing, but it couldn't have been much. And, he carves out a role on the power play, carves out a role in the penalty kill, ends up in the top 4 for basically his entire Ranger tenure. He's been in the top 4. Has there ever been a time where he's been on the bottom pairing? I don't think there really has. Certainly not any sustained time there. And he's going out there and he's going toe-to-toe with some of the best players, some of the most dangerous forwards in the entire league. What happened? Where's that guy? Getting in the face of Sidney Crosby, they had like a little side rivalry that I think they still sort of have, but that was established right away. I thought that was a lot of fun. Keandre Miller not backing down from every New York Ranger fan's favorite player, Sidney Crosby. What's going on? Where's the edge? Where's the toughness that he played with? Where's the physicality that he played with early in his career? He's gone backward. At best, he's plateaued. He certainly hasn't gotten any better the last couple of seasons. And I'm going to throw out some stats on Keandre Miller here that I think are kind of eye-opening. We'll start with hits. Now, hits, I mean, it's not the only way to measure physicality, but let's go Keandre Miller hits from least recent to most recent in the last 3 seasons, and then we'll conclude with this season. So 3 years ago, 151 hits. 2 years ago, 162 hits. Last year, 148 hits. This year, he has 83 hits in 57 games. So he's on pace to take a step backward there. And as I just mentioned, though, it's not just the hit total. He clearly is playing with less physicality than he has in other parts in his career. And I just don't know what the problem is there. Certainly, he's got the size and strength to play a physical brand. I thought he had the edge to do that as well. We just haven't seen as much of that recently. Takeaways and giveaways. This is an interesting one, too. Now, these can be a little bit fickle because, what constitutes a takeaway and a giveaway, and what was just like, oh, well, he lost a 50-50 puck. It's not really a giveaway. So I get that. But these numbers will really open your eyes. 3 years ago, Keandre Miller, 59 takeaways against 37 giveaways. Great. 2 years ago, 61 takeaways against 68 giveaways. It's not terrible. It's about 50-50. Last year, 57 takeaways against 34 giveaways. This year, 43 takeaways against 74 giveaways. He's already set a new high in giveaways this season, new career high, and we've got 19 games to go here. He's going to push for 100 giveaways. He might get there. And another thing to consider, if you're weighing your options, do we re-sign Keandre Miller? Should we trade him? What should we do here? He is in his contract year. He's playing like this. His game has slipped like this in his contract season. So what's it going to be like when he gets the big contract? And this is not a Keandre Miller exclusive thing. This applies to different players in the Rangers from throughout history. It applies to different players in pro sports. But guys that get paid big, not everybody, but a lot of them, there is a little bit of, I'm going to take my foot off the gas a little bit now. He's doing this now at a time where it can really affect his bottom dollar. And again, I'm not trying to turn this into a Keandre bashing session, but I mean, that play cost the Rangers the game. And there were a lot of other things that led to that moment, clearly, but it's overtime. The chips are down. The coach gets to put 3 players on the ice to start the overtime. He made you the guy. He made you his lone defenseman that was going to be out there. And you make a play like this, and it costs the Rangers the game. So I don't know what's going to happen with Keandre Miller. I think he can certainly help his own cause by stepping it up a little bit down the stretch here. I hope he has a great game today. Maybe he will. We will see. But, that pretty much wraps it up as far as Keandre Miller is concerned. In just a second, we are going to shift our attention to Carson Soucy and his NHL debut, or rather his New York Ranger debut. Not his NHL debut, but we will get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year, Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are never frozen and always fresh and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's calorie smart, protein plus, or keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnNHL50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, let's go ahead and talk about Carson Soucy. This game just annoys me, man, because I thought that we were going to start this episode by talking about Igor and talking about Soucy and him getting a goal in his first debut. And at the end of the day, it just becomes an afterthought. It would have been a nice way to do this episode, but hey, the Rangers can't hold on to a 2-goal lead with less than 10 minutes to go. And this is where we find ourselves. But overall, I thought Soucy did a nice job. It was interesting to see him out there with Zach Jones on the third pairing. I figured he would be higher up in the lineup than the third pairing, but I think part of the reason for this also, I think it's very possible that they see Soucy as Adam Fox's defense partner whenever Adam Fox gets back. And that being the case, maybe there's a tendency from Laviolette and the coaching staff to not shake up the other defense pairings and just kind of go with what they've been going with. Keandre Miller and Will Borgen seem to have found good chemistry in recent games, despite obviously Keandre Miller's, mistake in the overtime period in this game. So, Soucy's on a new team. Let him get familiar. Let him get his feet wet a little bit. And then when Adam Fox is back, you're ready to pair those two together. I think that's very possible that could be what ends up happening. But yeah, Soucy scores a goal in this game. He gets a pass from Artemi Panarin, takes a shot from a sharp angle in the left circle, and the save was made. And it was funny because you couldn't see the puck on the live play, but it got through Ullmark and basically just fell down to the ice, and it was on its side and just rolled into the ice. So you couldn't see the puck, but all of a sudden you could hear the crowd kind of doing, oh, like they reacted very audibly. And you're wondering, did that sneak through? And then you see the replay, and indeed, that is what happened. They review the play, and because it was a continuous play, quote unquote, they did overturn the no-goal call and the moment the goal scored for Carson Soucy. And this should have been a really fun, really awesome moment for Soucy. And in the moment it was, but it's just rough because, again, the Rangers blew this game, and it could have been a really fun story. Carson Soucy, who isn't really known for his offense. I mean, he does have 85 points in 350 career games, so it's not like he can't chip in once in a while. It's not like it's completely wild if he gets an assist or something like that. But, man, you've got a guy who's not known for his scoring, who's making his Ranger debut, scoring his first goal. And I just got to think that when you're on a new team, to get a moment like that, it's got to take the weight off your shoulders a little bit, right? Maybe you're gripping your stick a little bit tight. There's some nerves, some nervous energy, call it whatever you want to call it. Learning a new system, meeting all your new teammates, to get a goal right off the bat there, awesome. And it was awesome. And his teammates reacted great to that as well. A lot of guys went over to him to congratulate him. Trocheck gave him a big bear hug after it happened. Good stuff all around. But you want to celebrate this with a win, whether you're a player on this team or a fan of this team, as we all are. And obviously, again, the Rangers' own ineptitude prevented that from happening. So that's really unfortunate. But overall, I thought Soucy was good. He made a really nice play against Brady Tkachuk in this game. Tkachuk actually sort of got around Soucy a little bit near the net, but Soucy recovered immediately, used that long reach to poke the puck away from Brady Tkachuk. There was a nice play also where he was under pressure, Soucy, while the centers were bearing down on the forecheck and kind of in a tough spot behind the net, was able to get to the puck first and just kind of push it forward, get it over to Zach Jones, who was by himself and was able to get the puck out of the zone. As far as his stats go, I mean, obviously we got the goal. He was an even plus minus, one shot on goal. So there you go, 100% shooting percentage for Soucy with the New York Rangers. He also blocked a shot, and he ended up with 15 minutes, 39 seconds of ice time, which was the second lowest among Ranger defensemen. Only Zach Jones had less at 15-11. I'll be curious to see if that eventually sees a bump going forward. Certainly if he's out there with Adam Fox, which I think could be the case, then you're going to see his ice time get quite a jump when that does happen. But, overall, just a mistake-free game from Soucy. Made simple plays whenever he had the puck, just simple passes, getting the puck out of the Ranger zone. Overall, I think good stuff. And I still really like this move. The fact that they got him for just a third rounder in a trade market where Brian Dumoulin was traded in exchange for a second rounder, where Lawton from the Flyers was traded in exchange for a first rounder. You get Soucy for a third rounder. That's pretty darn good. And in a roundabout way, you could almost say that they got Soucy for Riley Smith, because they traded Riley Smith to Vegas. they got a third-round pick in exchange, and then they flipped that third-round pick over to Vancouver for Soucy. And the Rangers were never going to re-sign Riley Smith after the season. He was going to be on his way, and they've got Soucy under contract for next season at a very, very reasonable price. So I still love the move, and curious to see what Soucy can do the rest of this year and certainly next year as well. This was a game with a lot to talk about. I think you guys can certainly tell based on how long I've gone on today's episode. But some of the things we haven't even mentioned, I'm going to save it for the next episode. Some odd personnel changes, or decisions rather, from Peter Laviolette. Brett Berard was nowhere to be found in this game, and I think he should have been playing in this game. I think he should be playing in just about every game down the stretch, especially now that VZ and Smith are no longer in the picture. That would seem to open up the door for some of the young guys to play, but you know how it is around here. We can't have nice things. So, yeah, I figure we can call it there. I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of everything. The good news here, as bad as this loss was, the Rangers in 6 of their last 7 games have gotten at least 1 point. And obviously points are at a premium at this point in the season when you're where the Rangers find themselves in the standings. So that's obviously a good thing. We also have to give some props to Mika Zibanejad in a future episode. I know he'll still drive you nuts from time to time, but he has clearly played a lot better in recent weeks and recent months. And I think that pairing with JT Miller has really worked out nicely for Mika Zibanejad. You could make a very strong case that not a single Ranger has benefited more from the acquisition of JT Miller than Mika Zibanejad. It might actually be tough to make a case against that. That's kind of where we are there. So we will give Mika his due in a future episode. Wanted to do it today's episode, but again, the Rangers can't hang on to a lead, and here we are, mourning another loss. So we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, that is @jchick17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. We are closing in on 4,000 subscribers. So a big thanks to everybody who has already done that. And if you haven't, hey, help us get there. It'd be awesome. So thank you guys again, and I will see you next time.